And what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. I'm Daniel, and alongside with me tonight is Alina from Crime Scene Collective. We're going to be talking about the Nancy Guthrie disappearance, or should call it the abduction, and some of these new reports that are out there. What do they mean? Can we deduce some information about it? We're also going to talk about Savannah Guthrie's, uh, you know, interview that she just had here recently. Kind of dive into that. Get Alina's input on that, and so much more, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Without further ado, Alina, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Good. How are you? Happy Sunday.
I'm doing well. I'm doing better
How
today
are
than
you
I.
feeling? Yeah. How's everything?
Yeah, I'm doing better today than I have yesterday, and then yesterday was pretty good too. So, two
Good.
good days in a row without a significant migraine. So,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right, but I've been keeping up with the medicine that they gave me, so I think that helps.
Yes,
You
it
know,
does. I
doing
heard.
what the doctor says.
Yes. Doctor's orders.
And so let's start. Let's talk about this. Let's get into it. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is, let's see, I'm going to pull it up real quick and let me share the screen here. I don't know if we're going to be having any audio, but I'll share the audio too. So Nerdy Addict, and this has been kind of going around. Nerdy Addict's been covering the case. He's been doing a pretty good job of doing so, putting a lot of information out there about the Nancy Guthrie disappearance or abduction. And he put out a tweet, I think it was yesterday or the day before, saying, I have now two sources confirming that one of the letters sent to the media in the Nancy Guthrie case allegedly states that the sender apologized, claiming they did not realize how serious her heart condition was and that she has gone to be with God. According to these sources, investigators believe the message came from the same individuals who previously demanded Bitcoin, though this latest letter reportedly made no demands and was framed solely as an apology. While this has been validated by two independent sources, it has not been publicly released or confirmed by the media, meaning that it's not, take it for what it is. It's a grain of salt. This is information that he has gotten. Now, I know you've spoken to some folks that may know some things. Have you heard of anything like this?
No, I haven't. So, kind of took me, by surprise reading all this new information saying that there's some apology letter or that there was some verbiage in there that leads to them saying, we didn't mean for this to happen, kind of, to give that idea. I haven't heard anything in regards to that. I did watch that 3-part interview that Savannah, gave to everybody or gave to the Today Show, and then it was, shown to everybody. And they did bring up the ransoms, but this was not spoken about specifically. So I honestly, this is the first time I'm hearing about it.
I think some folks are kind of connecting some dots also that with some of the statements that Savannah had stated throughout this time frame, including one shortly, after TMZ reported that they had received another letter where Savannah kind of says that, hey, they're coming to terms with the possibility that their mother's not alive, and using that time frame with this as a reasoning that this is a possibility. I'm not completely sold there, to be honest with you.
Right.
The information that they're saying, the heart condition stuff, this isn't anything that's not public. I mean, everybody knew about this, especially very shortly after the disappearance.
Right.
I just wish they would say something that's a little bit not, what's the word I'm looking for? That's not publicly known or can't be researched.
Right.
That's the part that bothers me.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was one of my, biggest takeaways from that 3-part interview is even when she's asked, her, questions on what's her thought on this or what she saw when she was there that day or what questions about this or that, the whys, the who's, the what's, the where's, all that. It just kind of were regurgitated. And I'm not saying anything on, ill based against this family. I know they're going through a very hard time, and I understand that families go through stuff that we can't even imagine, and I hope none of us have to imagine. So I don't know what it's like to be in her shoes. So it's hard to kind of, assume certain things. But things that are factual, I'm comfortable speaking on. And in the interview, when asked questions like that, there's nothing like you just mentioned. There's nothing that hasn't been already released to us. And it's very much, well, yes, we know that, the front door had droplets of blood on the front step. Well, yeah, everybody knows that. Tell us something we don't know. What did the inside of the house look like? Did it look like there was, a struggle? Was there anything knocked over? Was there anything broken? When you say that your mom had just her pajamas and no shoes on, what made you come to that realization that there was no shoes? Where did what led you to believe that when you say that in the middle of the night, she was crying for help? Why, what makes you think that she was crying for help? Of course, we can always assume, but the way I feel that it was worded or, kind of broadcasted to us, it seemed more like, I can't believe my mom was screaming for help and nobody heard her kind of thing,
And do we have an email where you can send us the info? Bees, yeah, drunkturkeyshow@gmail.com. And so, when it comes to Savannah's interview, I know a lot of folks, including Steelers fan, who felt a certain way about it, that maybe perhaps it seemed rehearsed or it seemed, practiced, I would say is the word. But, my response when it came to that was, if somebody were to take something, let's just say you're watching some surveillance footage and you see a pro athlete and somebody tries to rob the athlete, and then the athlete runs after the robber and is showing incredible speed. Now, are we going to say that that athlete trained for that moment, or was it because they've been training and in that moment they were able to, display that type of ability? Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to say is for Miss Guthrie, for Savannah, is it because of the amount of reporting and things that she's done and the words that she's used that have been impactful to grab people's attention? And I think that's what she's trying to do here to a certain extent, is perhaps gravitate towards the heartstrings of the abductors, which I'm not sure you're going to get very far with it. Mm-hmm. But, I think that's what her approach is. And I think she's utilizing things from experience and terms from experience that have been impactful. And I think that the difference is in those moments, she was talking about things that weren't relative to her family. And when it is relative to her family, it does seem different.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does make sense. And I understand what you're saying. I completely agree that, that it's specific to her, and it's not so much that she's scripted in this. It's just that she understands what's in front of her, and she understands how to kind of control the audience so it doesn't kind of get out of control, because media can get out of control too.
Oh, for sure.
And she wants to kind of, because of her position in the media, she wants to kind of have a handle on it the best way that she could.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. And to me, though, kind of going back to she believes that and she said she believed, not necessarily that law enforcement, not necessarily that she's been told or anything else, that she believes that the abductor was the same person that sent out some of the ransom letters that they got. Now, are the ones that she's referring to the same as the ones that TMZ got? I don't know. I mean, we can all assume that's to be the case because they're the ones that we're aware of, but we also are aware that they had received other ransom letters and notes from other people who were not the same. In fact, one person got arrested for it.
Right.
And so could they have gotten other ones that we're just not aware of? I would assume it's a possibility, but I would think that they're talking about the TMZ ones. Which one do you think? What do you think?
Well, again, I'm not saying anything to speak badly on the family. I feel very badly for all the circumstances that they're in. One thing that kind of stuck out for me is when the ransom letters were brought up, and this is specifically what Savannah says. She says, I haven't seen a single one. Does that, like, for me, it's like, wait, what? You haven't even seen them with your own eyes? Why not? So you're only told what's in these letters? Now, sure, we don't know how much of this she has to keep a lid on versus what she can share. But I think maybe if you're not supposed to share this, maybe just don't speak on it at all or say that I haven't seen them. Because if anybody in my family was abducted or missing or kidnapped or anything, and somebody was sending letter on top of letter, I'd want to see it. I'd want to see the way it's written, the verbiage, the writing style, even like if they used a different font, I'd want to see it all. I'd want to smell it. I'd want to lick it. I'd want to do it all. I'd want to figure that out. I don't care how it's sent digitally. It doesn't matter. I'd still want it in my possession.
Right.
And to say that we know there's 5 or 6 of them that she hasn't seen a single one. Well, that kind of makes it mucky for me because, why? I don't know. Like I can't.
Well, that could be a law enforcement decision.
What's that?
That could be a law enforcement decision, telling her we're not going to show them to you. But I would assume that the information that's in it would have been portrayed, because you're going to want to try to validate the information, especially if there's information that's in there that supposedly only the person that committed this crime would have known. And now, my opinion is if this was more legit than non-legit, then there would have to be something in the letter that not even Savannah would know. Right. Something in the letter like, hey, when I was in there, I knocked over the desk or the coffee table.
Yes.
And, something specifically that happened that night. Because at the end of the day, and I'll bring this up to everybody's attention here, this is just, people have been able to determine an outline and where things are based off of video of what's been inside of the house, based on, a couple of things that are out there. Mm-hmm. Not everything. And so obviously there's not a huge, there's not everything about the layout of the house as of yet, but somebody with the information that is out there, dedicated enough, could have created a layout as well, or known a bunch of things. And even after the fact, knowing that, a horrible crime has occurred and that there is a family that possibly has, ties to some money, and, people are going to try to look and take advantage of that. And this is the same kind of stuff that they're going to be able to find, but one of the things that I thought was very interesting about this layout, and one of the things that made me feel like, for instance, that kind of what I was thinking may have actually have occurred, is in this layout. So we know that, and you know what, let me pull up, I'm going to pull up another photo real quick.
Okay.
Where do I have them at? Where do I have them? I hope I have them here somewhere. I didn't lose them. Here it is. Let me find it real quick. All right. So we know that according to Savannah, she said that the back doors were left open, propped open, right? And a lot of people were wondering why. And as I was looking at the layout and I was looking at the house, I realized you can park pretty close up here to the right. And I think this is the entry and exit point of where this person wanted to get in and out. Now, if this is true, he never really he really didn't need to walk in front of the house. And like I've been telling people since the beginning, I felt like that was intentional. Walking in front of the house, walking to the front doorbell. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to create fear, havoc, maybe perhaps created a spectacle. Which then again, I mean, if that ends up being the case, contacting TMZ would also fall in line with that. But if his intention and his plan was always the back door and going through there and parking on the back or on the side here and making entry and getting in and out through here, he never needed to go in the front of the house.
Right.
Now, something changed. Let's put up the other image. So Nancy's bedroom's way over here. And what do we know? We know that there's blood in the front of the door. And according to Savannah, it sounds like it's also inside, right? Through the doorway. And so I had said last time, or I've been saying this for some time, that I think that the initial plan was to walk her out the back and into the vehicle on the side of the house. Mm-hmm. Something happened, an injury occurred, and maybe perhaps the mobility issue. And now it's a lot further of a distance to get there than right here out the front door and pulling up the car.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when he decides also to remove the doorbell camera. I don't think he was going to remove the doorbell camera at that point. I think he was just going to cover it. He was just going to do whatever, make it seem whatever. But, then he had to go through there. And so then he goes and he removes it because now his car has to park in front of it.
Right.
What are your thoughts there? About?
I mean, that's very interesting. I honestly, I haven't thought of this, and because in my head forever, I just always thought there was no way they pulled a car up in that driveway. Like it would be so loud. And that's the only thing that stops me is the noise. And, some people's cameras will turn on just based on noise, right? So they would have to already assume that no cameras are going to pick up that loud noise of them pulling into you can't even pull in slowly and cause no noise. The slower you go, the louder it's going to be. Like, best chance is just to pull in as fast as you can and pull out as fast as you can and hope that nobody catches the noise and they just think some animals are fighting. But going slow and all that is going to cause so much more of an audio disturbance in that silence, in that time at 1:47 a.m., when it's so quiet. It makes it hard for me to go with a car over there.
The driveway is way over here on this side. Her bedroom's way on the opposite side. She's also inside of the building. This is Arizona. I'm assuming the AC is probably on quite a bit. There's going to be a lot of things. And then, whatever medical devices that she may be utilizing, if she's on oxygen or some of those type of things in her room, there might be a lot of obstructive noise that's going to prevent her from being able to hear.
The neighbors and their cameras, it wouldn't pick up that noise.
The cameras from the neighbors were found to have been having some issues during the time. Now, I thought that he had a jammer. And again, this goes back to him wanting to be seen. And I have been saying this. I've been pounding the table since I saw him walk up to that front door. And I said he wanted to be seen. Now, if this was a ransom type of situation, he wanted to instill fear. He wanted Savannah and the family to see him. He wanted to ensure that they saw him and that this was an abduction. This wasn't a situation where she got up disoriented and walked out of the house and you can't find her. He wanted people to know, maybe perhaps specific people, Savannah and her family, to know who he was, right, the fear that he instilled, what he looked like, and what she saw when she opened her eyes when the intruder was in that house. He wanted them to see the gun. That's why it was placed where it was at. He wanted them to see his face, the mask, the whole 9 yards. And so, and yes, some folks are saying dogs were barking as well. And that was also reported. So
the neighbor reported that.
Perhaps maybe the dog did hear the car and the audible car, and that's why it was barking. Right. And so, but to me, if he's parking on the side here and the intention was the back door, and using props to keep the door open, that's another thing. Props to keep the door open. That tells me he's by himself.
Okay.
Why would you need props if you have somebody else to hold the door open? And we know that she's not being carried out because of the aspirated blood that's on the front of the house. If two people are carrying her out, she's going to be, up. She would, in order to make the blood spatter, and I had Steve from True Crime Web, a former CSI investigator, in order to have made that blood spatter outside in the manner that it did, she would have had to have been facing directly down. And so that would have been weird to have carried her out that way from two people. You don't carry her, you carry her with her back up against your chest. Right. And somebody holding the feet, that's up. There's no way that's going to happen that way. And so to me, this was an indication, and we know that there wasn't like a wheelchair or anything like that, because when Steve did the experiment, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but Steve did a couple of experiments, and I'll bring it up here in a second.
Okay.
He did some experiments, and he believes that Ms. Guthrie was ever between like 16 to 18 inches off the ground, or her face was, when the mist came out, and that there's no handprints or anything like that. And so we suspect that she was bound at this point, probably placed on the ground while the guy goes and gets the car and then comes back or gets something set, whatever. But she's not being, she's not being carried by two people. There's not a wheelchair. There's not, a device that she's on, because she's on the ground facing downward when that happens. And so to me, that just tells me this was also a one person job. What do you think?
I think it would be very difficult for one person to carry her out in a time of distress. I really do.
Well, I think that's why he changed the plan. I don't think he planned on going out the front door. I think he planned on going out here, the side where the doors were propped, right next to the driveway. But because of the injury, maybe because of the mobility issue, has to do something different.
When you hear the word prop, what is in your mind? Like, what do you picture? Like that something was like stuck in the door to hold it open, like it's just a swinging door, and something was put in there like a door stopper to hold it open, so it's easy to carry a box in or out, like when you're moving. Like, is that when you hear prop? Is that what you kind of?
When I hear prop, that I hear that something is mechanically holding the door open. Okay. And so, whether that's something on the ground, whether that's like a brick, or whether that's a door stopper, whether that's a chair or a piece of furniture that's held up against the door to keep it open.
Right.
But I think the intention was initially to go out the side and the back. I think that's why we also see him without the backpack and without the gun at one point.
That's a very good point. Like that's a very good point.
I think he'd already been inside the house. Well, maybe not inside the house. Well, that's the thing. If he'd already been inside the house, let's just say he wasn't planning on disconnecting the camera completely at that point, and he'd already been inside the house, and plans changed, and now he has to go and do some, move the car up front. Now he has to go and disconnect the doorbell camera, and he's already, moving around. He's got all his stuff. Maybe he already put that stuff in the car. He doesn't need it. What do you need it for with her and being the only person in the house?
Yeah.
And so I think that's when he goes up to completely disconnected from the wall, is at that point.
I think that's a very good point. I understand what you're saying. I'm looking for a picture that I had of the back door, and I sent it to you, I think last time we were on. Do you remember that picture? Of her back door, and it's a sliding door, and both doors, from my understanding, are sliding doors in the back. There's two sliders in the back.
Well, this is the blue one right next to the this is where the driveway would be.
So that would be a side garage door, maybe?
Right. So according to this,
I found it. I don't know if you're able to see it.
So here's the garage. I think this is just like the back area, storage room. This is and I think this is one entryway. This is one entry, 1 and 2. Yeah. So this is that one entryway, and this is the second one over here. This is the grassy area that they have. Let me just pull them both up at the same time.
Where is the fountain with the little grassy, like on a little round grassy? Can you show that backyard to me again, please?
Yeah. I'm gonna try to flip it around real quick. Edit. How do I want to flip it? It's facing the wrong way.
I really don't know, because I've not done that before, but.
Oh no.
Can't you just go into crop and mirror it?
Yeah, hold on. I pushed a button, and now it's like the entire screen on my one screen, and I can't get it to come off. Son of a gun.
Son of a gun.
There you go. I got it to come off. Son. Jesus. All right,
All right. Oh, okay. Let's look at the backyard. Go back more so where I can see the pool, all of that. Yeah, that's what I want to see. Okay.
So there's another door here, and I'm assuming that door right here is where that was also propped. And there's a bunch of stuff right here, and I'm wondering if something from out here was utilized to prop the home or prop
All
the
right,
door. But
I have the picture that I want to show. Ready?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Let
so
me remove
that's
this.
the picture that
Oh yeah,
I
that's
remember, and that's the slider. So you could see the slider is opened, just slid open. And this is how they found the property in the back. You
yeah, I
can
remember
see
that.
like a comforter or something kind of on the floor.
I thought that was right. Oh, I'm not even showing it. I thought that was right here on this building.
Yeah, what I was looking for is if you look right here in the reflection, you can see like a bird fountain or bird wash. I don't know what they're called. Bird bath. You
Okay.
see the reflection. So that's and it's on a little small grassy like stoop, but then there's side there you could see the bricks around it. So that's why I'm thinking it is on that overhang that you
On this part right here, it
um,
could be that. Oh, right here. There's the
yeah,
bird right here.
there it is. That's the 3 layer. Yep, that's it.
So this is that sliding glass
That's
door.
the sliding glass door right there.
I wish I could freaking flip this around. That's the what I was trying to do, and I accidentally made it
I
the
wish
entire screen, and I couldn't take it off. The thing is, it was covering my screen with the StreamYard, so I couldn't see anything. All right, so let's see. And me personally, I don't, like I said, I think he came in. Plan was always going to be right here. Now comes the question: how did he know that? Did he just research it? You know, you would assume that if he knew this by being there, maybe perhaps having some sort of personal experience with Miss Guthrie, he would have realized that this would have been the longest path for her to have gotten through, and her mobility issues would have been a problem. Don't you
right.
think? So like does this kind of lead you to believe this to be based on this, right? Doesn't this kind of make you believe that maybe perhaps this is somebody not completely familiar?
Um, well, I originally never thought that it was somebody that was 100% familiar with the terrain or the area. I thought that they were looking at it like, like somebody drew it for them and they were kind of looking at it like, okay, and then you're going to walk in the house or you're going to go to the left or you're going to go to the right or you got to go here. And when you walk up the steps, you might see, XYZ, you might see some, you might see a big cactus right there. You might see some brush. I feel like in my originally, like when I would, think about this happening, I felt that the person that approached the house was a player in this of many players. And his job was to bring them Nancy, no matter how. Just bring us Nancy. That's what your job is. And if it's true that, how this apology letter and all that, I didn't know that she had a heart condition and she passed upon, when it happened. He didn't know, but he still knew what his task was and what his job was. And maybe there's some security for him if he succeeds on this. So he just had to bring them this item, regardless of the shape or form that it was in, because that's all his assignment was,
For me, when it comes to the ransoms and it comes to even this most recent apology thing, I've always thought that if, and this is a big if they were connected, that it was somebody trying to misdirect someone, make them think that this was a ransom, make them think that this is what it was, whatever the case may be. Including, maybe some of those questions like, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, to try to mask who they could be. But again, the fact that they took them all, or the plan, and I'm assuming this was the plan. I mean, to me, the dots aren't that hard to connect here. You have doors that are propped open leading towards a side door or a back door that's right next to the driveway,
right.
that is furthest away from the front of the street. Now, the front of the home, is obstructed from the street, but it's pretty close to the street.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's pretty obvious, in my opinion. This is my opinion, but it's pretty obvious that the initial plan was to have her come in and out. Now, the doors being propped and things of that nature, I wonder if that was done. And a lot of people question, why was he in there for so long? Maybe this is why he was in there for so long, was trying to get her out.
Mm-hmm.
But he had propped the doors, and to me, that's a sign that he probably had the intention of carrying her.
Yeah, could be
You know,
preparing for it, but if that's it, and then he ended up going out the front door, and that's why the back doors are left propped open because then last minute
he
change of
just,
plans, and then
yeah,
he
he just couldn't do it.
right. I just think that I mean, yeah, all of this is very probable. I just because I was there, I just the noise is just I can't drop the noise. Like even like right here, you have the picture of the house, right? And you have
Yeah,
the street right there, and you can see the cars like where media was kind of parked. And you mentioned that the front of her house is kind of obscured by the landscaping, right?
yeah.
It really isn't though. So like if I'm walking with my camera, like my phone, and I'm kind of walking by and want to record, there's only probably like, like maybe like if I had to spread my arms out, like maybe two times over, like just a one big area where you can't see right through that tree or something, but the rest of it, I could just hold my phone and I could see everything. I could see her windows, I could see her front door, I could see the side, I could see the garage. It's just where you stand. And there's really just one tree that really does block a lot of it, but go to the right or go to the left, just take a little step here or a step there, and you can see it all. Like you can,
Mhm.
if you're a walker and you're walking by this house every day and this is part of your path, it's not that you miss this house because it's kind of blocked by this landscaping. Absolutely not. This is one of the houses that would stick out to you because most of the houses are set back and kind of blocked off. This one is not one of them. This is one that you would be like, oh look, we get to see what these houses look like, and there's an example right there, and then you got to keep going down the road, and you might get lucky to see another one like that house right there that you have your cursor on, right? The
Yeah.
next door, you can see that if right where their pool is, right? And then if you go right there, that teal barrier, that right there. So honestly, that doesn't look like it's in the same place that it was, but it has to be because
Well, even so, based on what you're telling me, even more so of a reason to park back here. No.
well, I wanted to tell you though. So go back. So where that teal is, okay, and the neighbor's yard, and then go back more so we can see where her garage is. Okay. So all right. So where that teal is, so there's that spot, and then where the garage is and that little parking area, like you can, that strip there, that's where the sheriff was parked most of the time when I was there.
Oh,
And
geez, he probably shouldn't have been. Why was he be parked there?
I mean, that's where they were parked
Like,
majority of the time. I'm telling you,
you see the doors open, man. They're propped open. This is where he tried to go in. What are you doing?
that's where the sheriff was parked the majority of the time when I was there. And at one point, because remember I mentioned there was these search teams that came from like Mexico, there was the United Cajun Navy that came out. They all wanted to help out with the search for Miss Nancy. Well, the search team that came from Mexico, the Madres, I think Sonora, they wanted to, because they had like these reporters that drove out like 4 hours from Mexico that wanted to cover what they were doing. And like, it was just this whole like kind of, they had this crowd around them. And so where that teal is and in the road, that's one of the only openings as you're walking that you can kind of get into like the terrain when you're walking on the road. So the Madres saw that teal park because that's where we can see it from the road, and they're like, this looks different. This looks like disturbed land, and that's where they wanted to do their testing, where they do that whole thing and smell the stick, right? So me being a little overly excited, I was like, because I was with them, and I was like, I'm gonna film all of this. I'm getting right in there, and so I jumped through and I literally sat in a cactus. I didn't even know. And I've got my phone and I'm right where that teal is. That teal is on my back and I'm zooming in. I'm right on top of them. They're literally like 2 feet, a foot in front of me. And those people that live in that house saw us somehow and they called the cops for
Oh
trespassing.
man, I was going to ask you if you talked to them.
But how did they see us? My point is, how did they see us and how did they hear us? The police officer, the sheriff that was parked in that spot, she yells over to us and look at the distance. And she says, I wouldn't be there if I was y'all. And it sounded like she was standing right next to me. I mean, I never ran so fast in my life. I was like, whoo, whoo. Like I got out of there so fast. I thought that sheriff was literally like going to be coming out of that cactus right behind me. But she was literally with her window down, just talking from the driveway. So this is my example of the noise. Again, if I was all the way through all of this and I can hear what the sheriff is saying, I can hear that she opens her door, I can hear her get out of the truck, because that's when I was like, oh, we're really screwed. I heard, all of that commotion from the driveway to that spot, and I'm in the bushes there. How did nobody else hear anything else? If there's a whole car that pulled in and took a whole woman out of the house and takes off and spends 40 minutes in this house, and there's nothing, we even got blood on the front step. This is just where I can't. They heard
it's at
us
night.
over there and called the cops like this, but
Right.
there's
Well, I mean,
nothing.
if you guys got caught in the middle of the night, like at 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was just you guys out there, and they heard you guys, and then yeah. But I mean, I think that's the main difference is this guy attacked during a time when everybody was asleep, and at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. What day of the week was
Well,
this?
just that I remember you texting Heather and I stressed out. I really thought I was going to be one of the ones arrested. I was like, how's this going to go down?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's true. I
yeah.
was
Yeah, I think that's probably the difference is that at 2:28 in the morning or 1:40 in the morning is that people are going to be asleep, and is this going to be loud enough to wake them? Now, what the other thing that we don't know is, well, I can tell you right now is with that pool and stuff, there's going to be a pool pump, there's going to be water moving and things of that nature. So that's going to be a louder sound coming from this area from where you're inside of that house, and so. Um, th- I
so
don't
you said
disagree with you
something really
that
smart.
it
Golf
could.
cart, maybe. That's a good point, something I never thought about. And yes, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I did mean sheriff deputy, not Sheriff Nanos. Of course, he was on
Oh, okay. I
once.
thought you were talking about the sheriff Nanos was there parked there. I was like, "Are you
No, somebody
serious?"
said maybe that I meant one of the deputies, not that I
Well,
was saying
still,
that the sheriff
you
was
shouldn't be
parked.
parking there, man. Like,
That's where they were parked. Yeah.
because it appears that tire tracks would be left, like impressions of tire tracks would be left there, right?
Okay, well, that's a very good point that you bring up. You would think that that whole area would be, I mean, there's a picture of the crime scene tape, that they did surround the home with the yellow tape. But one of the pictures I saw is they had it attached to a mirror of a vehicle, and that means that vehicle had to leave. So they must have known at that point when they attached that tape to that car, we're just here for a little bit. I've been to so many crime scenes, and that sometimes that is up for a month, a week, at least several days, but they taped it to one of the sheriff's cars because maybe, I mean, I don't know. To me, that was just like, what are you doing? But what I wanted to say is you said, they were in the driveway. That's where they all parked. They tied the crime scene tape to the trees over there at her house. They parked in her driveway. Everything was, that whole front yard, the side yard, the driveway, everything was disturbed. And
That's
you
crazy.
can't there, I don't feel like they'd be able at that point to distinguish
Anything, and
anything.
and
Yeah.
you probably damage or destroy anything that you could have. That's just ridiculous. I mean, you walk up to the scene. You have to like it's not freaking rocket science, guys. You walk up to the scene. You got blood at the front door. You got a doorbell camera missing. You got the back doors propped open, leading towards the garage, and a missing person that obviously is uh, gone without. At this point, you probably don't know what's missing or not missing from the home, but just that alone, right there, that tells you what? That this wasn't somebody that wandered off, that this is somebody that didn't leave on their own volition, that this
Right.
is somebody who was taken. It's
Right.
and you go and park in the area leading to where most likely the original plan was for the perpetrator to get in and out. Now, I can guarantee you, well, not maybe not guarantee, I can tell you with a high probability or possibility that most people, when they break into a building, the way they enter is the way they exit.
Mhm.
And so I would guarantee you that if the back doors were propped open, that was his entry. That's where he entered. That was where he planned to exit. And
I
again,
I agree. I mean, yes, I've agreed with Dan, guys. It's a miracle. No, I'm just kidding. I always agree. But yeah, I haven't thought of it this way. And you pointing it out and explaining it like this, like, yeah, you opened up open up a whole new thing over here, which is, now I'm like, huh.
But if if his whole intention was always that back door, this should tell you guys that that stuff there at the front doorbell camera, like I've been saying, he wanted to be seen.
Afterthought.
He wanted to be seen. He wanted to create fear, intimidation. You know, like I was talking with Steve because I was telling him, I was like, hey, if he had a jammer, because I've been thinking that he has a jammer. And the reason why I think he has a jammer, guys, is because there's camera footage around the house that doesn't capture him, but it captures what happens before and after. And you have neighbors who are saying that they have problems with their cameras. And so if he had a jammer and the way he approaches that front door, he doesn't approach it as if he thought he had it on and perhaps forgot to turn it on. He approaches, he ducks his head, turns the light on, does all this stuff, puts his hand in front of it. Like you don't do all that if you think the jammer's working. You just walk right up to it and start messing with it. You know what I mean?
So why is all of a sudden the jammer not working?
Oh, because he wanted to be seen.
So that's on purpose. That's
on,
you mean.
It's on purpose.
That's where he wanted to be seen.
Now maybe that's part of the ransom thing. Maybe he didn't want somebody to think that she fell down in the middle of the night, got confused, disoriented, walked out of the house, and just got lost somewhere. He wanted them to know that she was taken. And I've been saying that and this is what is like kind of stuck with me at this being a possible like fantasy type of crime, where the fantasy doesn't have to be completely like sexually motivated. It could be revenge fantasy. It could be a lot of different things, but that, illusions of grandeur could have been a fantasy of creating a crime that was unsolvable or whatever, something similar to what Brian Koberger wanted to do. But this was, in my opinion, him wanting to be seen on camera says a lot about him, about the guy.
Meaning what though? Like that he's a more experienced criminal, or that this has been planned for quite some time? Like which angle?
Well, if we're going with the angle of the ransom aspect, he wanted, I would assume, but you can do it without doing that. You know what I mean? That's the thing. You can take somebody and then send Savannah Guthrie a picture of her mom tied up in a basement somewhere and say, hey, she's gone. You don't have to come out on camera.
Right.
You know what I mean? So why does he want to come out on camera? Unless, like, and this is where I've been with this, is that he wanted to be seen. Now, maybe perhaps he wanted somebody specific to see him. Maybe he wanted Savannah to see him. I think this is very plausible that his mindset was that he was attracted to Savannah, and because maybe perhaps he couldn't get to her, this was a secondary trophy, so to speak, but in that process, he wanted Savannah Guthrie to know who he is and see him.
Right.
And to be honest with you, didn't he accomplish that mission?
Oh, absolutely. Tenfold.
And so that's where I mean, like, since the beginning, that's kind of where I've been sitting at on this. And the more that the information that comes out, I think it kind of sticks more with it being a good possibility there.
Right. Okay. So, going with that, was it somebody that is from the area, or are they a local?
See, that's a good question. If they are, if the ransom letters, which again, the two things can happen at the same time, right? Like, two things can be right at the same time. This guy could have kidnapped her, taken her, and then, it's not enough. He wants to get off on people talking about it, kind of like Zodiac did, or BTK when he contacted the media and things of that nature. And so this time he contacts them, gives them a little bit of information, but what he's telling him isn't true. You just kind of like with Brian Koberger, for instance, a lot of people say, you can ask him all these questions you want, but you can never know if what he's saying is true or not, because he's a psychopath and he's just not all there, right? Same thing with the kind of person that would commit a crime like this to an 84-year-old woman. you're not expecting to find the most classiest of individuals. You're not expecting that to be the case here. And so, with that being said, could they be giving up information and saying that, oh yeah, we have this, we have that, but that was never the intention. But he's just getting off on the attention.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. But that's still like, I'm curious if you think it's a local though, or somebody local to New York City, or more to where Savannah kind of is more of a presence versus if they have this infatuation with Savannah, she's not there that much. So why
That's
aren't
a good,
they
yeah. I didn't
focusing
answer
on
completely there.
stuff over there?
If the ransom person is the same and they did do this, then they contacted local media, and that would be a kind of a clue to them being somewhat local. They also contacted TMZ.
So
Now,
one thing about TMZ, I just want to say real quick. TMZ stands for 10-mile zone. Do you think that TMZ was kind of a little drop of information like 10-mile zone? You guys look in your 10-mile zone.
what do you mean? I don't understand it.
That's what TMZ stands for, is 10-mile zone, because that's originally what the premise of their whole news station and what Harvey wanted to do is push out the news within the 10 miles of in Hollywood and all of that, and what's happening within the 10-mile zone. That's what TMZ stands for. So with them choosing, or 30-mile zone, they said, I thought it was 10-mile zone, but okay, let's say it's 30-mile zone. Either way, was this meant as a little message, like we're giving it to them because this is the vicinity you need to look in? It's a 10-mile zone or a 30-mile zone. Like, it's so specific to send it to two local stations, and then to pick out of all of the other stations to pick TMZ, not the Today Show, not not Elon Musk, or not any of this other sensationalized thing, but they chose TMZ. For me, it's either it's generational, or they really knew it was so calculated that they're like, I'm going to give you guys I'm going to drop little pieces of cheese for you. I like, somebody was asking what kind of cheese they like. I do like American cheese. So what if they're dropping little pieces of American cheese for, the audience? Like, it's right in front of you. Nobody even sees this. And maybe it's a little game of
I think you're saying it right there. If it's them, I think it's a game. And that's what I was trying to say. I was like, I don't think it, and this is why you reach out to TMZ and you reach out to local media, because you want to hear about it. And perhaps this is somebody local because he wants to hear about it, see it on the news, and then wants it to be bigger. So he reaches out to TMZ as well. It doesn't reach out to the family necessarily. So this was never a ransom to be reached out to the family. This has always been a spectacle, which is what I said in the beginning. I was like, this doesn't make sense. This, you're wanting to create a spectacle. Well, shoot, him being on camera is wanting to create a spectacle. He's wanting this attention. He's wanting this. If the ransom letters to TMZ are connected to the same person, it was never an intention to actually get ransom. It was an attempt to get more of attention and more talk. And I think he's getting off on it.
Do you know what else stuck out for me with the ransoms and the timeline of it?
What is that?
I don't know if I wrote it all down, but the first ransom was February 3rd?
I think it was like 3 days later. FloJo says 4 days, but I think it was 3 days afterwards.
It was like on that Wednesday.
But don't you think that's about the time that you would think somebody's getting kind of itchy, like, want to throw in their 2 cents into something?
Yeah, but hold on, I gotta see if I wrote this down. If not, I'm just gonna tell you how I remember it. But okay, so how I remember it is they did the first ransom and then said, if you don't, it's 4 million Bitcoin, but if you don't pay, then, so I think it was like due on Thursday.
I thought it was like 600,000 in Bitcoin or something like that. It was a small amount because it was less than wasn't it less than or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong.
Well, from what I understood is the first one asked for $4 million to be paid by Thursday. And
I remember the date.
If that wasn't paid by Thursday, then they increased it to $6 million. And then that was to be paid by that following Monday. So, I don't have the dates in front of me, but if we were to look at a calendar, so So then that would mean they got it either the 3rd or the 4th, and then it was due, I think, the 5th, right? I think yeah. And then but then they said, and if you don't, then the full amount, which is 6 million in Bitcoin, is due on the 9th, which is a Monday. So remember last time we were on live together, what I talked about is how weekends seem to be something that sticks out for me too, on how it was like January 11th, January 24th, that the law enforcement was kind of focusing on as weekend dates. And what did that tell me? And I kind of was like, well, that they have a 9-to-5 job, or that they're available on weekends when they're free and away from whoever can kind of alibi them or say this is where they were or weren't, right? So what does this ransom also show us? That they don't want to get paid on the weekend. They omitted a whole weekend. If you're wanting that much money, you'd think that you just want it whenever. Like, give it to me ASAP, but you give a specific timeline of Thursday, but then if you don't get it by then, you guys take the weekend to yourselves. God bless. And then let's revisit this on Monday.
Or what about this? Did we know before the ransom note that this was a complete abduction? It wasn't out there yet. We hadn't seen the video. We hadn't known anything. We knew this was a possible abduction when the ransom note came out. Do you think that the reason behind the ransom could have been so that people could talk about it being an abduction? Because it wasn't out there at that point. Maybe that was the intention of the person, was like, hey, this isn't what I want. They're not talking about it and what it should be.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Maybe perhaps they're blaming the family, I think, at that point as well.
Well, that's why it's interesting to me on the timeline of, which letter said which. Like if the second letter that's, that we're kind of learning about, that the second letter says, I didn't realize how severe, your mom's heart condition was. And,
Right.
She's now with God or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
So that was after. And I feel like if we were to really like pull what happened in the news right before that or the day before, but not before that first letter. That's why I don't know. That's why I wish they would have told us which letter. And I know that, when I said that Savannah hadn't read them, I understand that could be by the FBI rules, and that I guess she did say in the interview that she read, or is familiar with what 2 of them say. Maybe I just missed that. Like, I'm only human, and I'm just saying what I heard in her interview. So I apologize for that to your chat and to your audience. But so, what was I saying with the ransom, right?
Right.
So tell me again. I promise it'll make sense. Just what was I saying on how it was specific? Oh, that her mom died. So that's what I'm saying is, did we find out about the pacemaker and the spike in that little gap of timeline from letter number whatever to the letter that
I'm not familiar with a spike.
So it was, well, from what I understand, there was a spike in her pacemaker, like that. Well, there was a spike in her heart rate to make her pacemaker kick in and do its job and to, work as its function. And that's to take over the heart. If there is an abnormality or something, something going on with the heart, the pacemaker jumps in and takes over the heart's function. Right. That's my understanding of a pacemaker. So what I've been told and what I understand is, right before her pacemaker went offline, so nobody can connect it, is there was a spike in her heart rate, which kind of would make us kind of, think that the pacemaker now gets kicked in, but then the pacemaker goes offline.
Yeah.
And I talked to a cardiologist, or I questioned, through a friend of mine, a cardiologist, about this, and they explained it to me, that that's exactly how it works. And in their experience, when there is a spike like that it's most likely not a good ending.
Well,
or it's indicative that the patient needs to be seen at least immediately or something.
Right. Well, I mean, if we go back to, and I don't want to be like, let me pull it up real quick. The experiment that we had. Yeah, people are saying that the spike happened at 2 a.m.
Yeah, so it was around then. I mean, so it makes sense. I mean, It really makes sense on the disconnect, like, but that, when was that information released to us? And that's what I was kind of wondering, is when they put that in the letter saying we didn't understand that her heart condition was so severe, now she's gone to be with God. When did we get that information released, to us, the people out here, about the spike? And then when did that letter come? Because I really would, in my mind, I think it was probably back to back.
Very well could have been. Very well could have been. I mean, that spike, yeah. I mean, at 1:47 is when the phone or the doorbell disconnects.
Mhm.
And I know
Yeah.
at 2:12, there's a camera picks up an object moving or something moving. They don't know if it's an animal or not. And so I assume that was outside.
Yeah.
I had wondered if that was,
Disconnect from her phone at 2:28 a.m. on Sunday, or that's what I have on
right.
2:28 a.m.
Yeah. And
from her phone.
yeah, at 2:12, something moves outside. And they said they could have been an animal. So I'm assuming it's outside. And so I had wondered if that was him going back and forth, still trying to get into the house. But that's probably not the case.
Right.
He must have got, if the thing spiked at 2, he must have been in the house by then. So if her pacemaker spiked at 2 a.m., like if it was at 2 on the dot, then he was in there before. Then is that when, maybe perhaps that's him going back outside to move the car,
Maybe.
you know?
So it was February 5th that the first ransom note was given. And it says on my notes, and I have like a printout from the timeline that was released, and it says that the deadline passed, which I don't know what that means. But then February 6th, authorities say they're aware of a new message, and a second message was sent to CBS News, Tucson's affiliate. So that's on February 6th. So so that's what, Thursday or Friday or something. I mean, and then it's the February 9th that the $6 million expires. And that's when Savannah does the plea for, can we get help from the public?
Yeah.
So in those pictures, did you have blood spots in the rocks, like on the driveway, or is this just strictly from the front step there?
I do have pictures of the walkway leading towards the driveway where there's a drop of blood. Yes. Now this is interesting here. So this is what I think is two things that are going on here. And I've talked with Steve from True Crime Web. I saw him in the live chat earlier. This is his experiment. I'm just going to explain it to the best of my ability. But if you want to watch his explanation, I did do a video in a live not too long ago. It's aired out there, I think a couple days ago. And so please go watch it in its entirety. It's really, really excellent. Good information to watch. You won't be disappointed. But one of the things that I noticed when I was talking to him about is we believe that there's two different types of blood pattern here. You have a mist and you have drops that are dropping.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mist is, he believes either cough or a sneeze. Now, I think it's a cough. I think because it appears most of it is straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you sneeze and you're facing downward, you should see it kind of going that way. Maybe perhaps if you're standing up and you sneeze and you end up facing down, that's a possibility. But this told me that this person was facing directly down. And these are some of the other kind of like recreation of what he was able to do with aspirated blood versus and what we see on there. And so like and if there was like a handprint or anything like that on there, this is what you would expect to see, which we don't really see.
Mm-hmm.
But what he also points out is that here, if there was like an object there on the ground and then blood around it, sometimes you can't really tell what it is that's missing there.
Yeah, because the object receives all that blood. Like it takes Sorry, just kind of.
Yeah. So this was just kind of again, I would recommend going back and watching Steve break down this. But a lot of people were thinking that this is just blood that's being dropped or dripped down. One of the things that he he also didn't see, which was interesting, was like you see how in this scenario here you have blood drops on top of blood drops.
Mm-hmm.
You have blood drops on top of the aspirated drop blots, but you don't have blood drops on top of blood drops. So she wasn't still bleeding from one point. She was moving a little bit,
Yeah.
quite a bit actually.
All right. I have a question.
Go
Is
ahead.
there anything, I mean, we also know that when they collected the blood from the front step there, the front stoop, that they're telling us that this blood contains both DNA, right? Of the perp and of Miss Nancy.
I don't know. I don't know that to be true. I'd be honest with you. Like, I doubt that to be the truth. This is what I think they have as far as DNA. When the sheriff says or makes the claim that this could take months or years and that they're working through the DNA and stuff, what this tells me is that they have DNA that's in the house that is unknown, but that they really can't attribute to anything or anyone. It's not like in the Brian Koberger case where they had DNA on a knife sheath that they knew that the killer brought in. This tells me that they have a bunch of DNA, kind of like in the Brian Koberger case. You had DNA on a railing, you had DNA over here, DNA everywhere. They probably have DNA everywhere now. What they're trying to do is just kind of eliminate everybody's DNA, which is going to take some time. I mean, to do a tree on all of them and things of that nature. So that tells me that they don't have anything concrete that they can say. We believe that the person or the perpetrator touched this item, or this is the DNA that belongs to them, because then they can focus in on that.
Right.
And then they can build a tree off of that one, and it wouldn't take as long. It wouldn't take years. The fact that he's using months and years tells me that it's most likely just DNA from all over the place. And who knows if it's even the perp or not.
What do you mean?
Well, what do you mean?
What do you mean? Who knows if it's the perp or not? That's the DNA that's mixed.
Well, I don't know if there's any really DNA that's mixed, but if the DNA that's mixed is like, let's just say there's blood on a countertop, and there's, DNA that was on the countertop that the blood is now mixed into. It doesn't necessarily mean that the DNA was there during the time that the blood was. It could have been there before.
Oh, that I completely agree on.
So what I'm saying is that they probably have DNA on random stuff.
But I think if there's DNA mixed with Nancy's, that should be pretty solid DNA that they should focus on no matter what.
Oh, for sure. But that's not going to take months or years. The fact that he's saying it's going to take months or years tells me that they don't have something like that. They don't have DNA that's mixed in with blood. They don't have DNA on an item that he brought in. They don't have DNA on, and maybe they did, and they just didn't process it right. I think that's probably more accurate than not, because I mean, when you look at the way they didn't process the front door properly, then there's probably that. That's probably the answer. It's more so they didn't find it than it not be existent. But right. If they did find it, I mean, they very well could have. They could have found his DNA and 40 other people's unknown DNA that have been in that house for various reasons. I mean, Nancy Guthrie went out that night, right? So if, the persons that she was there, if somebody sat in the table before her, now she has those people's DNA on her, the waiter, the waitress, the cook, possibly when they, brought them their food, the persons that cleaned the cups and stuff. I mean, there's so much DNA that could have been transferred around that is now inside of our house that they're having to go through that may not have anything to do with the crime, but yet they're having to process it because they don't have anything solid. If they had something solid, like you mentioned, like the DNA on the knife sheath in the Brian Koberger case, then this thing would have been solved, because Brian Koberger's case was solved, in 7 weeks?
Well, I mean, I think they knew who their target was in less than 4 weeks.
But due to the IgG.
Right. But that's also because he had family members that submitted DNA at some point through one of those.
The FBI has gotten involved here. So I'm pretty sure they're probably using the same backdoor channels that they did with Brian Koberger, especially with a case to this magnitude. And the fact that they haven't come up with a tree yet on somebody concrete kind of leads me to believe that they probably don't have something concrete like that. They don't have a knife sheath left behind, so to speak, by the perpetrator with his DNA on the button.
Yeah. Well, okay. What if though they, the reason they can't build a tree is because, um, you know, this person, first of all, I think they're younger, and I think hopefully other people agree that this person is not they're not 40 plus years old. I think they're under 40 years old. That's just my opinion. I think that they're actually under 30, but let's leave a 10-year bumper for everybody to say I'm wrong on everything. So what if they're not from maybe even this country, and the reason they can't build this profile with IgG and all that is because where their family is from, or their heritage or whatnot, has not even gone to take these tests or submitted their DNA or ever done anything like that, because it's just not something that they're interested in, or not in their realm of thought. It's just not what they do. Like maybe,
Right.
it's never been
So,
submitted for this family.
right. No, I completely understand that, and I agree. In fact, I was on a panel with Jennifer Coffin-Daffer, Philip Duvay, a homicide detective, two former homicide detectives, and another district attorney. No, I'm sorry, defense attorney. And I asked him that question. I was like, "Hey, what's the possibility that this guy's from somewhere else, and this is why it's taken so long?" And that's a good valid point. For me though, when it comes to you know, I've lived very close to the border before. I have friends who live on the border. I have friends who live in Mexico and things of that nature. If this is somebody who has ties close to the border, then there's a good possibility there's a lot of mixed family in the United States and in Mexico. And so I would think that there would be a good possibility of still finding some sort of connection loosely. Now, if this guy's from further south, Venezuelan or one of these other countries that he's gone up through, then maybe perhaps. But then again comes the part where how does this person, do they just get lucky? And when they decided to abduct somebody and that ended up being Savannah Guthrie's daughter or mom, or was that planned? And if this is somebody from some third country and all these other things, like how do they have access to the information and all these other things that would have been required to have committed this crime, including the knowledge on how to burglarize and the ins and outs of this place. So I find that probably less likely. But I also, when you say the whole age thing,
Mhm.
I want to agree with you that this is somebody younger than 40. But if 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 this person is attracted towards Savannah, and this was something more because of an infatuation with Savannah,
Mhm.
how long has she been in the media? How long has she been in the news? I think she started off there in the Tucson area. And if this person is local to the Tucson area, meaning that that's why they contacted, those local media stations. But then again, maybe that's why they contacted local media stations, because Savannah was employed there at one point, and maybe they knew that they would get that this is hitting close to home. I don't know. Anyways, and you would think they would contact the Today Show then at that point, but um, I'm thinking that this person could be possibly older than 40. Maybe that's why they had so much difficulty getting her out of the house.
I I understand what you're saying. I think, like I said before, that this was a hired job, meaning there's more than one person
Mhm.
involved, not just who was at the house, that night. I think there's several hands in this, and it's just like a homework task. Like you're responsible for chapter one, or 1 through 10, you're responsible for chapters 10 through 20. It's a group effort, and maybe for the DNA, I just want to say, before I forget, when Othram says it could take months to even years, I think that's exactly like how we were saying that it's going to take that long. And yeah, there's no way that they can't build a profile, if they're from, Mexico or Argentina or, Russia, doesn't matter. There's going to be some connect somewhere, but this is why they're giving that timeline, is because their initial polls showed nothing. And that shows them that this is going to take a lot of digging and a lot of time. And they're familiar with this. And that's why they gave that timeline. Like, this is not something we're going to figure out in a month. I know you guys are used to that we perform in this manner, but for this case, not going to happen. This is different. And without saying it in so many words, I think that's what they're kind of trying to let us understand, that this is a little bit more difficult for them, and they're having a hard time pulling information out of this DNA. And that's where, if it's generational and like the age thing, I think the person at the end of the task, like who wrote these instructions, that person I think is over 40, because the prize is, like, you're saying, is to get to Savannah, right? So they issued all of these stories or these jobs to these people, but they're not the ones doing them, because they could be older and they probably know I'm not fit for this. So then they assign it to a younger, more fit, kind of sportier, maybe in and out person.
But this sort of sounds like an agent, not an agency, but like a group of people. What is this? Is this the first time they do this?
Like, in my opinion, I think the main person at the top, not the first time. And that's why they were able to, kind of push out, you're responsible for this. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do.
Then why haven't we heard more about like other kidnappings like this? If there's a team that's like doing this.
That's a good question. Because this is specific to, I'm going with your theory that they're obsessed with Savannah, and you can't be like, if a person is obsessed, they're not going to be obsessed with every journalist on TV. They probably are zoned in on one specific person, and there could be crimes that they commit all over the place. I don't know, but for this, they only wanted one specific person. They're not trying to start, a elderly OnlyFans with these people. Like, they just want it for a specific reason, and that's why it was her, because there's a connection there. If they were going to do this to a bunch of elderly people, well, that gives a pattern that's going to make people mess up. It doesn't.
Right. I think that if there's a group effort in here, then there has to be a concised group, a reasoning to do it. So they all have to benefit from it. Nobody's gonna be like, all right, hey, my buddy over here really likes Savannah, so I'm gonna help him kidnap her mom.
Money.
That's what I was gonna say. It would have to be the financial aspect. And I just kind of struggle with this case as far as how like the ransoms and stuff come out like days later and things like that. To me, more so when we aren't knowing what's going on, and all of a sudden a ransom note comes out of nowhere. To me, it just feels like somebody was upset that the attention wasn't where it was supposed to be at. That people were thinking maybe it was the family, maybe it was this, and this guy is upset because this was his doing. This wasn't the family.
Focus. He's like, right here.
Exactly.
I'm going to refocus everybody right back over here, because for whatever reason you guys are focusing on the family. When I did this, I want the notoriety. I want to be.
That's what I'm thinking.
I want to hear what you're saying about me. I want to jump in on this. Like, it very well could.
And then once all that happens, what happens? We see the video of the guy. And now we also get Savannah and her family making statements and things. I mean, it's worked to his plan. If the plan was to get her attention and to get her to talk to him, she did.
Yes. Okay. But then if that was it.
Oh, I don't think that was it, but
right. I know. But like, let's work with that theory. If she was the person they wanted to get her attention, like, in my own opinion, and like I said, we can't judge what a family goes through in these circumstances, because we have not walked in their shoes. We have no idea what it's like. But if it's her that she feels that she's the cause of this, or the attention is because of her, I would feel that it wouldn't be her alone in these videos. It would show at least some people around her always, to kind of push out that narrative. Like, you can do this all you want, but you'll never get me alone. I'm always surrounded with people. I'm always protected. your job fell, yeah, it was pretty, smart and intricate, but it fell flat because you're never going to get to me.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely could. The more I think about this and the more, I look at this, I think that this guy, if he continually reached out, and which is something I said that if this guy was, the ransom person, and they reached out, that was because they liked the attention. They like this. They're going to continue to do it. This also doesn't mean that they're going to stop at Nancy. I strongly suspect that if this guy did this and he's getting off on this and he's getting off on everything that goes along with this, he's going to want a part two.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, yeah, I think that can happen, but I don't think that'll happen until like after the summer. I think there's going to be like at least 6 months to 8 months before, or even a year before there's
I don't
even.
know. This was a high for him. This is a high for him. He got high off of this. He's going to want that feeling. He's just getting high off of all the commotion and the content about him.
Yeah. Yeah. That could be very
if he gets
spot on.
addicted to it, if he's addicted to it and he likes this that much, he's going to do it again. Maybe that's what law enforcement are waiting on. Which kind of sucks because
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we go with that, I mean, we have the sheriff saying, we have a working theory that we're running with, but one thing we're not ready to share it with the public yet. But one thing we do want to share with the public is nobody's safe. It's like, well, why can't you share your working theory with everybody then? Because they said they feel like it was definitely targeted and it was originally supposed to be a burglary, but then they say it's targeted. It was definitely.
no, I think they said that they don't believe.
Nobody's safe.
Right. I think he said that they don't believe it was a burglary at all.
Oh, then maybe that's the part he said he doesn't believe it was, but he does believe it was targeted, right?
Yeah.
Not a burglary. Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Speaking. Sorry,
Yeah. He said he does not believe that it was a burglary, and a couple of reasons there. If nothing was taken, if the only thing that was disturbed was her, and there's no point in taking her. It's not like she could fight back and she scratched him or anything. You know what I mean?
Well, we don't know that. We don't, because again, in the interviews, Savannah says that she's feisty. And I always thought that too. And that's why from the jump, I said, what an odd spot to put that gun, because we don't know what Nancy's persona is. And what if she just goes raw and screams and elbows this guy and it goes off, right? We don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if she was that mobile. It sounded like in the most recent thing, she sounds like she had trouble getting to the mailbox.
That's with her legs. It didn't say she was trying to get to the mailbox on her arms. I
understand that, but I mean, 84, if he's surprising her in her sleep, there's not much she's going to be able to do.
And she doesn't have her hearing aids, so she can't really hear anything either, right?
That's true. And so, there's not much. There's no point. It's not like it's not going to happen. Like there's no way that she woke up, overpowered him, scratched him or something like that. And that's the reason why he felt the need to take her. I feel that is super small possibility. So he took her for no other reason. And then, I don't know when it was that law enforcement, got wind of when the camera stuff was there, when he was there, because I know that wasn't right away. They didn't see that image. But, obviously once that happens, I mean, that the person that's going in there is to take her.
Right.
That's what it is. No hearing glasses, no hearing aids, no glasses.
I don't agree on that. They didn't see that image. Like, I really don't. I think it depends on who had those notifications sent to them. And, number one, we would just assume that it's the person that lives in that house, right? So that would be Nancy, and her phone was left there. So they could have looked through her phone, looked at notifications, and you don't have to have a subscription to get those drop thumbnails. I've tested it on my own cameras and disconnected my subscription and ran in front of my house, did time lapses, and no matter what, I still got the drop down thumbnail that there's some motion, or there's a figure, in front of where we have our cameras on our house, right? So that's where it kind of, and so I turned off notifications on one phone, made sure they came to another phone, and I checked all of the possibilities on where they're going, and If her notifications were off, the notifications are still in there. You just have to toggle down. Otherwise, they'll come in all the time. And sometimes they send you a reminder too, if there's a lot of activity.
Interesting. You know, there's been this, oh, hey, I have that picture you were wanting to show earlier with the sliding glass door.
Yeah. So this is where I was just kind of, because we can see there's the screen door, the main, glass sliding door. So that's where I was just kind of curious what they mean by propped. And maybe it's just one of her verbiages, and we're just not familiar with her language and terms or words that she uses daily. And maybe by prop, she meant left open, and to them it looked staged, and that's why she said propped. I really don't know, but I don't know how a sliding door can be propped unless it's on a retractor that just slams closed, which again doesn't seem even safe to me with an elderly person living in the house, that it would just slam if somebody tries to open it.
No, I agree. I wanted to ask you this because this has been going around. This has been making the rounds, and I've seen it also in the comment section. So folks have been saying that the front door was locked. The perpetrator left the door locked. I heard it from the interview room. Detective McDonough said that he believes that the family may have been involved because, well, whoever left out of the front door locked the door behind him. And some people are saying that you can tell because of the deadbolt, but there's this plate. You can't tell that this door is locked or not locked because of the deadbolt. I looked it up on Google. I've not found anything. I asked ChatGPT, and they said, no, there's no reports that this door here was found locked. In your sources and in your, people that you have talked to, have you heard if this front door was found locked?
No, I've never heard that.
Yeah, neither have I.
And I used
heard
to
it
have
once.
a door just like that when I lived in San Diego. And so obviously the top lock, you have to use a key. But from what I understand, I think there was a key both sides, but I'm not 100%. But that bottom one, if it's similar, you could just turn the little thing and close it behind you and it automatically locks, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, if somebody did that, but were they specific on the screen door or the main front door was locked?
They were talking about, it sounded like he was talking about this door, this screen door was locked. I have no idea where he got that information. Maybe he has a source that I'm just not familiar with. But I've gone back and listened to everything that Savannah said and the family and looked up as many as many reports in the media that I could find. And I just could not find anywhere where that said that was true. I even asked ChatGPT to do a search for me to see if there was anything in the media or in news reports that indicated that the steel door was open. And the only thing it said was like, no, contrary. The only thing that they said was that the back doors were propped open in the most recent Savannah Guthrie interview, and that was the only thing that I have said or I've heard.
Yeah.
But I have no idea where that information is coming from outside of just, I heard it on the interview room the other day, and I was like, is that true? And I'm not saying, one way or the other. I just have not been able to find it for the life of me.
I know that Chris mentioned several times that he has spent time inside this home, so he's very familiar with it. If he's mentioned this, I haven't seen it. I have not seen when, like the timeline of when the last time he was in this house or when he spent time in the Guthrie home. I really have no idea, but he does mention on several occasions that he's very familiar with the layout of this house and kind of how they almost to like how they function as a family, because he says he's been there, he spent time with the family, he knows this house, right? With that, I think it might have even been the same episode. They talk about the front door and that there is a key used post this abduction or crime when people had to access the door, like when we saw the FBI, and I saw this myself too, when the FBI and law enforcement, when they showed up, they did use a key to open that front door. So I don't know. I haven't heard that, but then let's just go back. And if that's how they locked it, because they would just have to turn that little nozzle. If you're carrying out a woman, you're all by yourself, you're really going to stop back and be like, oh, hold on. My mom has always taught me to lock the door on my way out and then lock the door. Come on.
No.
but you left the two back doors open, and you got this weird gun over here, and this back, all, no, I can't imagine that one of the things they did was turn that little thing to lock the door. That makes zero sense to me.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. If it's true that it was locked, then it's very weird and
I mean,
something
I'll
that's
ask
something.
around, I'll let you know after, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
The other thing was that that this door is, from what people are surmising, and I don't think this was on the interview room. I can't remember where this was said, that that door is pretty much always locked. And so we know there's two doors. There's the screen door and then her main door. And this is just my opinion. I kind of don't think that the screen door was always locked. I think maybe her main door, her main front door right behind the screen door, was probably locked. But the screen door, I don't think that she took the time to lock both top and bottom lock. And I only say that because what we saw during all this is that she had her Amazon deliveries delivered to
mhm,
the front door. So if she's having a hard time walking, bending, all of that, she's really gonna, lock all that to get her packages. I think she'll lock her front door, and you'd leave the screen door just an easy access. I'll grab it and then I'll close it. That's just my, I'm trying to think like how my family or other elderlies that I've been around, I'm just, trying to put them in their shoes, because again, I have no idea. I feel terrible for this family, and I hope they do get answers sooner than later, but I don't know. Like, it's just the
yeah.
locking is that's an extra step that I just don't see a criminal taking, especially at this point.
Right. Yeah. No, there's, I agree with you, which is why I think like the prop doors, that was an abandoned plan. Like, he didn't go back and say, oh, well, let me go and unprop them. And so he just left
Yeah,
it as is,
right. And
and
that
so,
was, yeah, he probably maybe even forgot, like you said, like there was a last minute change of plans, and maybe it was once he was in the car or whatnot, he was like, oh crap, I left the
I
back door
mean,
or what, like I think it was an afterthought.
the only thing that it's going to do is just kind of tell law enforcement, which, is his intended plan or how he got in the house and his intended plan to get out of the house. I think that's the only one. That's the only thing. But yeah, I I have no idea where Chris McDonough got the information that that door was locked. I was hoping maybe you had
No.
maybe some sources that have indicated one way or the other. That's the only place I've heard that at. Also, but like I said, I have no idea. He may have a source somewhere. He's former law enforcement, and I've told you guys this. Like I've had sources also close to this case and to other cases, and especially in the Idaho case, and a lot of that had to do with me being in law enforcement previously as well. 12 degrees of separation, and so I wouldn't be surprised if he's done work with or has some sort of loose connection with people that or officers or law enforcement officials that might be working in the Tucson area and get some information. And so I do know that at one point, law enforcement did suspect, I guess, the brother-in-law, and that's one of the things that Ashley Banfield had brought out. And I don't think that she was wrong. I think that maybe perhaps law enforcement was looking at him at the beginning. But I think that's the problem with like leaked information, right? Is like leaked information comes out like, hey, they're looking at this guy, and law enforcement might come out and say, no, we cleared him, but nobody leaks out how they cleared him. What was the steps that law enforcement took? And so there's always this doubt on the family or on people that have been looked at in previously because information doesn't come out. And I think that needs to change. I think that if somebody gets accused of something and there's information that is exculpatory that have cleared them, I think that it would probably be in the best interest, especially now, maybe not in the past, because things weren't like this in the past, but now with the need for information and stuff like that, I think law enforcement should make a change and really be more open and transparent when it comes to how they clear people and what it is that made them decide to go that route. Because if not, I think that leaves a lot of room for some horrible speculation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I 100% agree with you. I also think that law enforcement and, police departments, precincts, all of them should have, I know they have counselors and all that available to victims' families, even the officers and whatnot, but do they have something available to members of the family that are unjustly, scrutinized and accused, and how to cope with that, because I really think that it can, it changes their path of life, and it could really, you know, detour them from what their true intentions were in life until, 55 days ago when everything changed, or what are we on 58 days now that
Yeah.
everything changed, and they should have those resources available to them, because it's taken X amount of time, and this is no blame on anybody. It's what they've been dealt with, right? But let's help the victims and the people that are, having the fingers pointed at them, and how they can deal with this, and what steps they can take to absorb this and handle this in a I don't know, I don't know in what kind of way, but nobody's given a handbook on what to do when a family member dies or is murdered or abducted. Like, nobody knows. It's like, you're thrown into, it's like me telling you to go play in the Bills game and you're a Steelers fan. You'd be like, I'm not used to these plays. Like, you have no idea, right? It's throwing you into a game that you've never even practiced for, you've never played for, you have no interest in, and they're thrown into this game and forced to play, and everyone's got their cameras and watching them. It's
I'd
not
still
fair.
succeed. I'm just kidding. I would still succeed. I'd find a way. I would win. Unless it's against the Steelers and I'm throwing the game. I'll let Neil O'Donnell that and throw it to the guy. I don't disagree with you. And, I wanted to get your opinion on this. So there's been a lot of talk about this guy. This guy is a Pima County sheriff officer or sheriff deputy. He is being charged with kidnapping a woman in custody. Now, the MO doesn't match to me. The appearance, kind of does. Like the eyebrow, eye, mustache look. I mean, you put you put a ski mask on this guy's face, he looks very, very familiar. I'm not gonna lie.
Mugshot, if there's all this, there's not a mugshot to get a clearer picture of what he looks like.
No, this is off of a video.
Mm.
But the MO don't match. The Nancy Guthrie case, kidnapping was involved a lot of sophistication, in my opinion, maybe even jammers and a lot of forethought and pre-planning. This guy arrested some lady, and instead of taking her to jail, he took her somewhere else, showed her explicit videos, and tried to get her out of getting arrested by for sexual favors. And so, yeah.
I've never heard of a police officer ever doing such an atrocity.
I mean, how stupid you got to be to do that? Like, it's just
You're
like
looking
he does this he did it in the police car. Apparently, he was like, he like took a hit of a vape pen, and shared it with her. Like, this guy's just a piece of work. And so, if this guy was responsible for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, I think he would have been arrested, 3 days afterwards.
like me just looking at him, like, my first opinion, it doesn't match. His eyes aren't round enough. His eyes go upwards rather than downwards, and his mouth also goes downwards. And I think the person in the video, their mouth was almost had like a bow tie kind of lips, and you could kind of wrap them. They went upwards, and this person, everything was like me. Look at this.
And if Steve is correct that this guy is 6'6", then that is definitely not him.
Oh, and there it is right there. See?
Yeah, definitely not him. But a lot of people are looking at this guy as a possible suspect. I just don't think that the MOs match. I think it's this is just some dumb guy that was thinking with the wrong body part.
For me, I would look at this and be like, well, if this officer at that point felt that comfortable to do all this and you said that he did this in his vehicle, the
Yeah.
vehicle, to
Yep.
do this in the patrol vehicle, which is recorded, right? To take a hit off of the vape pen, I would, in my mind, what goes, first thing that goes to me is there's a reason he felt comfortable doing this. I don't think this was his first time. This is just the time he got caught doing it. Right?
Apparently she filed a report saying that she feared because it appears that maybe this isn't the first time that he's done that with her specifically either.
Right. And so that means that there is a comfort within, and I'm not pointing fingers, wherever he is employed, there must be a comfort that he knew somebody's going to turn, a blind eye to this. Nobody's going to turn this in. If those videos aren't reviewed by anybody, and we're all, we all work as a team, and as long as, the victims don't speak up, we're good. I got your back, you got mine. You don't do this just because, comfortably. I think you do this because you got away with it for so long and you just got caught.
Yeah, yeah. Escalation is true there too. Somebody just doesn't go from one extreme or from nothing to one extreme. There's usually a buildup. Got away with something, got away with this, got away with that, and then got to the point where it's where we're at now. 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
So Brian Enton is back in Arizona. He flew back in. Me thinking, and then we talked a little bit about this before the show started. I was thinking out loud. I was like, all right, this is one of two things. One, maybe they got something and he's going back because he's about to report on something pretty big. Or two, he's got questions based off of Savannah's interview that she recently came out with, and he's wanting to go and now speak with the sheriff and some other people about maybe perhaps the door being open and things of that nature, and maybe dig a little bit more to get more information. What do you think about Brian Enton being back?
So, we talked, like you said, we talked about it right before the show. I was, just as surprised as perhaps you were to see that Brian's heading back. I did actually hear that he was heading back, but I heard this like over a week ago, and I was told at that point that he's on his way back, and then it never happened. So I was like, maybe whatever news they thought was going to come out a week ago or something kind of fell flat, and I don't know why it's changed to now, but I did 1000% hear that he was heading out there earlier, but is going out. I don't know the truth on this. I just know what sources tell me, and I trust the person that told me this. So now hearing that he's definitely going there, and I saw him at the airport, I saw all that. I think that the interview, I think that is what kind of restarted this. And I think maybe media wants to revisit this and kind of like, the FBI was doing when they came back and retraced the steps. I think maybe that's what Brian might want to do for, his followers and supporters, and be like, all right, let's start at square one. What do we know now that we have this video of, one of the children speaking, what can we add to what we already know? And they also, I think, are hoping that they get a lot of more leads because of this video. Last time when Savannah put out that video when she was all by herself, and that was when I was still there, I think it was the week of March 22nd, that generated 750 leads with the FBI, exactly, with just that one video within under 24 hours. So I can only imagine what, like, this whole 35-minute episode kind of could have gotten the ball rolling with more tips and stuff coming in. And we know that Brian gets, firsthand information, and the neighbors love him. So he has a spot to park and everything. So I think it's because
he's got some top-notch reporting on this case. I really like Brian. In all the cases that he's covered, he's done a really good job, in my opinion, of being really about the evidence and the information that's come out. I've never really seen him pander towards, like rumors or towards speculation too much. I really think he's done an excellent job covering this case. And I look forward to what else he's going to be reporting out there. Did you get a chance to meet him while you were there?
Oh yeah, I met him before though. Like I've talked to him, met him several times during the Idaho case, and then at CrimeCon and stuff like that. So yeah, and I talked to him and spent some time under their little tent, and yeah, he's a super nice guy. Like he is what he perceives himself to be. He really is that personality. He really is that person. It's not a facade. It's not a front. When the cameras aren't rolling, Brian acts the exact same way. Like he is that person. I mean, I don't know what he's like when, he's down the road and nobody can see him anymore, but I've seen him in lots of different situations, and he's never wavered from how approachable and kind he is. And I've even come up to him, like when I was at CrimeCon my first year, I went up to him and I had my phone. I was like, I want to get another picture because there's some of my members want a picture of you like this, and he was just like, yeah, let's do it. And he was hustling, trying to get to one thing to another. And I had already gotten my pictures with him earlier, like maybe 2 days before. And now he's like, we're towards the end and he's just trying to get to one place to another. But there were some members that wanted to know about his skincare routine. And so I promised them that I would find out. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to get a picture of a close up of his face. And then I'm going to ask him, hey, Brian, would you care to share your skincare routine with us? And so that's what I did for my members back then. So, and he was good with it. He was in a hurry. He was in a rush, but he still answered everything I wanted to know. Like, he was kind, and that's just who he is. I really genuinely think so. I don't think he's anything other than what we see.
He says, I have so much info for you, DT. Look out for the email late tonight because I have stuff to do, but in California time, everything you need to know time. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, Bez. Again, my email, if you guys want to send me anything, is drunkturkeyshow@gmail.com. I'll be checking it out. And also leave comments, subscribe. Also go check out Crime Scene Collective. I have the link in the description. It's also posted, pinned in the comment section. Also her TikTok for Crime Scene Collective and mine too. I'm trying to get that going up there.
How's that?
It's all right. If it's not Brian Koberger, I really don't get views. It's insane. That's my niche. If I just whisper Brian Koberger's name on a TikTok, I'll get thousands of views. But anything else, it's like, all right, 25 to maybe 500 views or something like that. And so I would appreciate it if you guys like, comment, and subscribe here. I have my thoughts and opinions on this case, like I did in the Brian Koberger case. I have a TikTok. I also have another YouTube channel that nobody has been able to find yet. It deals with me ripping Pokemon cards. So if you're into that, go find it. I got like 33 subscribers now. If you find my TikTok, you might be able to find the TikTok that's associated with my Pokemon channel. So for those that are looking for it, I know there's a few that are looking for it. There's another hint. There's another hint. If you find my TikTok, there's a good possibility you'll find my other channel. So
ooh, look at these little nuggets you're dropping.
Yep. And I think it's Daniel_drunk_turkey is my TikTok. Go find me. I have a lot of stuff. I'm going to be posting up some clips of tonight's show probably in the next couple of days. But what do you have going on? I know we've gotten kind of long here. What do you have going on for
just safe stuff? I'm trying to cover. I started my YouTube channel too, and just like you, I'm trying to get the subs on there. So I'm trying to update, when I can with this case. I took a week off because my kids were home from college for spring break, stuff like that. So, but it's just the same. I'm just helping families out there, assisting with cases where families need questions answered or just some help with, some stuff that they deal with while they have a case in their own family. We hope nobody has to deal with that, but I can help.
There you go. Well, you've done some great work. Are you planning on going back out to Tucson?
No, I don't think so, because if
there's an arrest and a trial, would you go for that?
I'd go for I'd definitely be interested in the trial, but not the arrest. I don't think an arrest is coming even in the next 30 days. I don't. I think maybe there's information that will lead to the arrest. I think that is kind of what's on the brink of about to come out. And I think it'll maybe lead to like the next phase of this, which could be a manhunt or, now we have more information. Let's see if we can put more of these puzzle pieces together. But I think the next information we're going to get is kind of to lead everybody on some wild manhunt for somebody that they really don't know or should affiliate themselves with. And I think that's going to be the next phase of this, honestly.
It could be, but once they do find their guy and they make an arrest, I'll be covering the trial. I may go out there. I don't know. I've been to Phoenix. How far is Phoenix from Tucson?
From my understanding, I think it's like under 2 hours, because there were several people that would show up while I was there, and they would say, I'm visiting from Phoenix. And I got 2.5 hours, 2 hours. So I guess maybe it just depends on where you live over there. But like for me over here in Dallas, like if something is 10 miles away from me, I can literally get there in 10 minutes, like it'll say on my Waze or whatever, 10 miles, 10 minutes. But over there, you can have something that's 2 miles away and it'll take you, 10 to 15 minutes just because of how the roads and how it's designed and how, how Tucson is. You just can't get around as easily as over here. So maybe Tucson or maybe Phoenix says 20 miles away, but I'm telling you, it's like 2 hours. So it just
Yeah.
depends.
If they have a trial in the fall or winter, I'll definitely be out there. In the summer, I don't know about being in Tucson in the summer.
No
Uh,
way. I mean, it was terrible just during that week. I mean, it was and it was, I think the hottest it got was 90, but the heat is different. It's not like what we're used to over here. Like in the hotel, I'd be fine. I'd be like, oh yeah, today's gonna be a great day. The minute the sliding doors open and I hit outside, I was like, oh, like my mouth, it just felt like, people just shoved a bunch of cotton in my mouth. I was like, oh, I couldn't breathe. I needed water immediately. And it's so dry, your skin shrivels up. Like you
really?
want to just sit like you just want to soak yourself with water constantly to hydrate. It just sucks the life out of you. Like there were days that I would drink water on top of water, like bottles after bottle, like huge bottles. And I didn't have to pee once. I didn't have to go to the bathroom once. I'd get to the hotel and I'd be like, I don't even know if I'm going to make it, but I'd even get to my room and I'd still kind of be able to do stuff. And I'd be like, why don't I even have to go to the bathroom? It's been since 7 o'clock this morning and it's 8 o'clock at night, but my body absorbed it so much. I didn't even have to go to
Wow.
the bathroom. Like that's how insane it was. It was a different experience. And for whoever is staying out there and following it, like kudos to them. It's a lot of work and it's tiresome. And especially right now when there's just no answers, like they're the ones that are, really dedicated and trying, but I don't know. It's right now there's nothing. So I don't see for people like us what we would go for, but somebody like Brian Enton,
Yeah.
I feel by Tuesday we'll know why he's there.
Well, I'm going to be watching and we're going to be talking about it. Steve says that his son-in-law is big into cards, has online shows. Whoa, send me some information. I'd like to see it. I'm really big into it. I just pulled for those that don't know, I pulled a card. It's a Charizard out of the most recent Phantasmal Flames. I think right now, not graded, it's worth about $850. If I grade it and it hits a 10, it is probably about $3,000,
No way.
which I'm pretty sure it's a solid 10. Now, if I send it to this one place called Beckett and it comes back as a pristine 10, it could be tens of thousands of dollars. Now, I did an AI grading and it came back a pristine 10 on the grade, and they said centering, everything is perfect about it. So we'll see. Go find it. I have a video of me pulling it, and I freaked out a little bit.
Holy, I mean, that's huge. My daughter does that, and she has a few cards that she's pulled, and they're between 600 and 800, and it's the same thing. Like if she were to get them, I can't remember the like you said, graded and all that, then it could definitely render a lot more money. But she's a kid; she's not going to do it, and I sure should. I'm not paying for it. So
yeah, no,
I pay for the cards themselves, and
yeah, no, I've already registered with Beckett, so I'm gonna send it out. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping for at least a pristine 10, because a pristine 10 or at least a 10. So there's a 10, pristine 10, and a black label 10, and big differences. It goes between like 3 to 16 to like $50,000. And
was
so
it an American pack or one of those Asian packs that we spoke about before?
no, no, it was American. It was out of a one that I got out of Walmart. I purchased it at my local Walmart, and I popped it open, and boom, I hit, and I was like, "What? Smokes!" So if you find,
three of your followers were right there watching you, huh?
Yeah. Well, that video's had a couple thousand views, but I don't get as many subscribers. You got to follow. You can see my excitement, and I'll give you guys a hint. Even though I'm wearing a mask, so you won't see my face. You won't see my face, but you'll hear my voice in some of the videos, and that's why I was found by people who know me already, like in real life. They were like, "Hey, are you this person?"
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, how do you know it's me? And it's because I guess my contact information, they came on their For You page on the TikTok. And so they're like, yeah, you came out on the For You page on my TikTok. It sounds just like you, but they don't follow me like on YouTube. So they're not part of the search. They're not part of the search. This is like my accountant actually found me. I was talking to her today that we were doing my taxes.
I was just gonna say, of course they did. It's tax time.
Yeah, they were doing my taxes.
May.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, I started this Pokemon thing, and I've been spending some money that I'm gonna need to write off next year. And they're like, yeah, we got you. And they're like, are you this person? I'm like, how did you know? And I was like, They're like, is it my voice? And they're like, yeah, it's your voice amongst everything else. I was like, all
That's
right, well,
funny.
go find me, but hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on this one. I'll be back probably on Tuesday night, guys, unless something breaks, and then I'll be on tomorrow night late.
What have you
Again,
got going on? What case are you talking about on Tuesday?
well, it's either going to be about this case or if anything has popped up on this case or General McCaslin and his missing disappearance. I'm still talking about him and the other scientists that have been missing in the last year or who have been deceased. They all have some sort of connection to either Los Alamos or Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I have no idea why the intention isn't getting the attention that it needs. You know, these are people in prominent positions that have held secret positions. And especially now when our government is at war, you would think that there'd be a lot more attention there, but it's not. So go check it out.
And wasn't there a new woman that's being spoken about now that's associated with this, but she went missing in, 2025?
Yeah, she went hiking. They went hiking.
Another hike.
Yeah, she went hiking. There's two of them. So there's two weird ones. There's one where she goes hiking and her two friends get ahead of her.
And that's the one that waved?
Yeah, turn around, she waved and then disappeared.
Yeah.
And then there's another one where and this one's kind of similar, but they have video of her. She goes, so her and her husband both work at Los Alamos. The day before she disappears, her husband forgot his ID badge.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he had to work from home. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, so the next day she uses the same excuse to quote unquote work from home, and then goes and drops like food off at her daughter's work, leaves her everything behind, phone, everything, and then just disappears too, takes off with a backpack.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the cases that I'm talking about. There might be some more that are connected. So if you're interested in that, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll be going on Tuesday night, probably about 8:00 p.m. Central.
Awesome.
All righty. Well, Elena, thank you again for joining me. It was a great time talking to you. We'll have you on again as soon as we have anything break.
Yeah, definitely. Hit me up anytime.
Yes, ma'am. Well, everybody, please hit the like, subscribe, go into Crime Scene Collective, follow, like, and subscribe there. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Peace out.
Good night.